All right. Welcome back, guys. It's Wednesday. Thanks for joining our live stream. It's Jeb Smith here, talking real estate with Josh Lewis, Buywise Mortgage, both in Southern California, as many of you know, here to talk real estate, the housing market, update you on interest rates. If you're a first-time home buyer, maybe somebody going through the home buying process, you have questions. That's what we're here to do. So do us a favor. Leave them in the comments and we will address them. Keep in mind, we do start getting a lot of comments. So if we do miss them, just be patient with us. You can use the super chat feature to throw it to the top. But Josh, thanks for joining me once again. My most esteemed guest. I think you're my only guest at this point outside of Kyle. So, I put a survey out there asking people, and are you muted? You're muted. How do I? There we go. You're good. You're good. You can chat.
Kyle's going to be disappointed to find out he's not the most esteemed.
Well, he might still be. I don't know. We'll have to do a survey on here and find out who they want to see more of.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But most importantly, I did not think it was possible to make me wish for last week's terrible techno music, but you accomplished it with whatever that thing was that you were just forcing on us.
Dude, I went through like 10 tracks on a non-copyrighted deal and I couldn't find anything that was worth, so I just settled at the end. I need a viewer to make me a tune and I'll throw it on there like a jingle, if you will.
I don't know if we have any musicians. I did see in the questions we have someone in the marijuana industry, but we need some musicians to pipe in that they can help Jeb have some actual quality intro music here.
And clearly somebody that's good at graphic design as well, based on some other things we're trying to create. But nevertheless, let's get started. People are here to talk about the housing market. Moonlight Sunrise, who is a regular guest or a viewer on here, is asking some questions about interest rates. And I know we normally talk about interest rates as we get into the further into the stream, just because there's more people here and the question continues to come up. So we'll address it a little bit later tonight to update you on interest rates. We also got some inflation news this week on Tuesday, which I think more or less went in line with what we've been talking about over the last couple of streams and what we expected, but I'm sure some of that will come up as well. But we'll start taking some questions here and get into it. So Joey Crack, a regular viewer here. Thanks, Joey, for joining us once again with those Denver Bronco gloves. Could you give me a primer on earnest money? How is it used? How is it applied to upon closing? So earnest money, escrow deposit, depending on where you are located, you might call it one of a couple of different things there, but it's the same thing. So when you purchase a home, you put down money to show good faith on the contract, to show the seller that you're serious about moving forward in that contract. That's your earnest money. That money is typically refundable up until the point you release contingency. So that money can come out of the closing cost at the end. So if you have closing costs, you're putting a down payment, there's a total amount due at the end of the transaction. In most cases, that amount is just deducted from that. It's not in addition to. And maybe you're in a position where you're getting a VA loan, and Josh, you can even talk about this. You're getting a VA loan and maybe you're getting a credit or something from the seller, and you're really not having to bring any cost, but you still put money down on that escrow deposit. At the end of the day, you could get that money back, but not anything more than what you put in, right?
Absolutely. And really, for those of you who had the joys of taking an accounting class in junior college or at college, it really is just dual entry bookkeeping. It's debits and credits, and your earnest money deposit is counted as a credit. The debits on the other side are the price of the home, the escrow charge, the title charge, the recording fee. So it simply is just a credit that offsets that. And like Jeb said, if you have enough other credits and it's allowable on a program like VA, you can get all of your earnest money deposit back. For the most part, you're going to have to make at least your minimum down payment, whatever the program says, 3.5%, 5%, whatever your required amount is. But all the credits, including your earnest money deposit, can come back to you once you've met that.
All right, awesome. And we do have a super chat already from Radiant Kratos. He's self-employed, makes roughly $52K a year. usually takes the mileage deduction to lower taxes. Can lenders add that deduction back into as income, or should you pay the full amount? And while you're talking about that, Josh, maybe talk about some of the other deductions that as a self-employed business owner might write off that you can add back in as income.
So yeah, let's kind of start. This is a unique one. When you take the standard mileage deduction, you have the schedule there, and it says I drove 10,000 miles, and I think the number this year is 52 cents a mile. So you put $5,200 as a deduction, but a portion of that is depreciation, usually about 25 cents. So that portion that is depreciation, since depreciation is a paper loss, you don't actually pay for depreciation like you do for new tires for your vehicle. It gets added back in. And what Jeb was alluding to there is anything that's a paper loss and not an actual cost can get added back in. Depreciation and depletion are the big ones. Hardly anyone has depletion. Some businesses do. Business use of the home for most programs can be added back in. For some reason, FHA in their infinite wisdom has decided that even though it's a paper loss, you should be hit for it. But there's a handful of items that are paper losses, things that you don't actually pay for throughout the year that we can add back into your income. So Radiant Kratos, here in the actual question, if you don't take the mileage at all, then we would get, in that instance, 10,000 miles at 52 cents a mile. The whole $5,200 wouldn't show as a deduction. You wouldn't add the $2,500 back in, but you would, again, have $5,200 more income. So if you're $52,000 a year, this is always a big question when we have self-employed borrowers. They say, I make $52,000 a year. Did you gross or bring in $52,000, or did you pay taxes on $52,000? So if you netted, paid taxes on $52,000, in my estimate there, you could add back in about $2,500 for the depreciation, and you'd have $54,500 of qualifying income. But it's really important, if you're self-employed, make sure you don't call up a call center or walk into the bank and try and get your loan. You need someone that's familiar with tax returns, what you can add back in, what you cannot add back in, and get you to an accurate figure. So when you're out looking at homes, they know you can actually get approved for.
You know, Josh, I would tell you that 9 out of 10 mortgage lenders cannot answer that question in the detail that you answer that in. So if anybody's out there watching, questioning whether or not they should be working with a professional, that alone tells you, exactly what you need to know. I mean, that's why it's important to, regardless of you're self-employed or W-2 or whatever, having somebody that knows not only the basics, but the details and has the expertise, that stuff shines in this environment. So good answer there. I'll say good stuff to that.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Let's go back up. So hopefully, Radiant Kratos, that answered your question. And thank you again for the super chat. We appreciate it. All right. So I'm going to go back up here and try to find, sorry, we jumped to the bottom there. I'm going back. And so Jennifer, one of our chat moderators, is here and has a couple of questions. So thank you, Jennifer, for being here, helping us get through this, the chaos of all the questions coming in. So she checked out a house yesterday. It has a bulged floorboard. Could that be a moisture problem or pest? Could be either. If it's on a raised foundation, most of the houses, I think you're back in Indiana somewhere, if I remember correctly. In California, we have a lot of slab foundations, concrete's poured, houses built right on top of that. A lot of the Midwest, the South, where I'm from, a lot of those houses are on raised foundation. So I'm assuming, just throwing it out there, maybe on a raised foundation and you're getting some floors bulging. Could be a number of things. It's really hard to say, but it could be moisture. It could be, the winter, things contracting and expanding, when you get heat and cold and that sort of thing. It's hard to say. I mean, that's why a home inspector is crucial in that sort of, situation. A good real estate agent can walk through a property and kind of give you an idea when walking through it, point out some things and say, hey, notice this. It may be one of a couple of things. I'm one for doing that when I walk through properties with clients, just to point out things that they might not look at because they're, emotional and looking at, and thinking of buying the property and living in it and not really looking at the details. So I point out things like that to bring it to their attention. But if it's nothing major, I wouldn't be really that concerned with it, let an inspector bring it up and see if there's a way to handle it. Anything you want to add on that, Josh?
No, not at all. I'll pipe in here when you do her follow-up question on the home
All right.
inspections.
All right. So Donnie K, we're going to go to Donnie real quick just to ask this. So Donnie's in the marijuana business, asking if he can buy a home, any known issues for buyers in that line of work. So it's funny, Kyle Seagraves from Win the House You Love actually did a survey that I saw, I think today or yesterday, where he asked the question if there were, people wanted to know about buying homes using income for marijuana. And I thought, how many, is that an audience that, big enough to want to view a video? And then I get somebody here wanting to ask the question. So I think that answers the question. But Josh, why don't you jump on that if you have an answer?
So it's a gray area, and for the reason that federally marijuana is still illegal. Certain states have legalized it, and in those states, the federal government doesn't really enforce their laws. So the simplest answer is almost every type of loan program will not allow self-employment income in the marijuana industry. If you own your own dispensary, if you own your own grow operations, probably gonna be a problem for you. If you work in someone else's dispensary and you're getting W-2 income, USDA and Fannie Mae have said that they're okay with it. FHA has not said, and Freddie Mac is still they won't put it in writing, but they're saying not allowed. So if you're self-employed in the marijuana industry, it's probably going to be difficult. If you have W-2 income, it sounds like you have a couple of options, but definitely talk with either a mortgage expert that has expertise in this, which there's not, as Jeb said, a lot of borrowers in that line of work. At least get with an expert that can do the research and find all of your options rather than just saying, no, you're screwed, or yeah, of course, and then you get to the finish line and can't close.
Gotcha. And then if you hang on long enough, you might get a video on another channel that'll do it. And if it posts and that question comes up again, we'll reference back to it. So Jennifer has another question here. Are inspection items graded on a scale based on the severity of deficiency? Are inspection reports complicated to read and interpret? So typically what happens with an inspection report, the problem with inspection reports is, every inspector, not every, but, if you took 10 inspectors, they would use 4 to 5 different types of software to do their report, which means the report might look a little bit different in each case. A lot of times what happens is they break the report down into sections. There might be a plumbing section, there might be an electrical section, there might be a roofing section, so on and so forth. And then at the end, what there is typically is a summary. And that summary goes over each one of those sections. And in that home inspection report, which I did mention, is a lot of times you'll have photos of issues, right? So if the roof has shingles that are peeling or whatever, the inspector will normally take a photo of that and include it in the report. But at the back of the report, there's usually a summary, or in the front, however they do it, that will go over these items. And they're broken down. But a lot of times you'll have like health and safety items, and then it'll be broken down into maybe electrical or what have you. From there, not really graded in the severity or the deficiency, so to speak, but kind of giving you an idea of, what category they fall in. And most of these inspectors aren't, willing or shouldn't go out there and tell you what you need to do to repair these items. They're not there to fix them. They're not, there to be contractors to give you bids. They're there just to tell you what those are. But Josh, why don't you jump on that? I know you wanted to
really what I like to
as well.
What I like to say with inspections, it's not all that different than realtors or loan officers. It is important to get an expert and be careful at taking, in this instance, your dad says, hey, I use this inspector, he was awesome. Or your coworker, your boss says, hey, I use this inspector, he was awesome. In this regard, no one has as much interaction with inspectors as a realtor does. So on most home inspections, most homes are in reasonably good shape. They point out the 5 or 6 things that have issues that you should be aware of, and you decide whether to ask the seller to repair them or not, but at least you're aware of them. But a realtor, a good realtor selling 20, 30, 40 houses a year sees tons of these inspections, and they know who's really good at it, because for the most part, whether the inspection is easy to read and interpret comes down to the quality of the inspector. How well did
1,000%.
they go through, and how, most of the things. I've flipped about 40 houses, and there's still things about homes. I'm not handy, not good at all with any of the things in the home. So some of the really complex things with electrical and stuff of that sort, I need a good inspector to put it in like layman's terms for me to understand. I've seen inspections from people that they're talking at such a high level that you're like, how in the world would a homeowner know what that means? And I've seen others that are so simple that like, I could have walked through and figured this out myself. I don't need you. So it's just really important to get an expert, and not only that sees everything, but then is good at explaining it to you in the report.
No, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. I mean, you need somebody that can, if they say this is what's wrong, okay, that's what's wrong, but not necessarily what do I need to do to fix it, but what's, kind of give me more information on that, right? Because there are some inspectors that will that say things in a way that, if you're not there at the inspection, you read it would scare the hell out of you. And that's why I usually tell home buyers, you need to show up at the inspection. Don't just let your real estate agent be there. Don't just let the inspector be there. Show up, because if you have questions after the fact and you're reading a report, it's really easy to get alarmed, to, and get emotional to some extent, even upset by reading a report like that, and not really knowing the severity. Because a lot of this stuff, when you start talking about electrical and water leaks and all of that, when you read it, you think, wow, those are big deals. But when you're at the property and they go over them, you're like, oh, that's not really a big deal. So, have somebody walk you through it. And if you don't have a good home inspector, if you can't find one, typically if you're working with a professional agent, a lot of times they can refer you to someone, but don't just go with them either. I mean, do your research if you want to find somebody else. And what I'll add to that is, if you're a buyer, you're buying a home, and there's an inspection report given to you, I still tell buyers to do their own report in a lot of cases. Unless the inspector on the other side, or the company on the other side that's done a good job. Because again, inspectors out there are a lot like real estate agents and mortgage professionals in this business, in that they, there's not a huge barrier to entry, and anyone can become one of these fairly easily. And so you want to just make sure that you got somebody on your side that knows what they're doing. So I want to go to Radiant Kratos again, because he just
coming in hot.
Yeah,
coming in hot.
I know if I had the track, I'd play it, but then we'd get banned and it wouldn't really work. But saying thanks so much. Can confirm what Jeb said about most lenders not knowing the answer. You're the only one that was able to give me a comprehensive, real answer. Thanks so much. So if you weren't here a little bit ago, go back and watch that. He had a question about mileage deductions being self-employed. Josh was able to give a very detailed answer, and he paid for it. I appreciate that. I will buy Josh a pack of gum or something. So thank you for
the fee, Jeb. The fee. That's like 3 cases or 4 cases of 805.
That's 4 cases. Yeah, that's 4 cases of 805s. All right.
Our wives are going to hate us after 4 cases of 805.
That's hilarious. All right, let's see what we got here. So I'm looking through. Josh, if you see something, here we go. If you got something, it'll come after this.
You go. We'll circle back.
All right, so we're just going to go up and jump out at whatever. We're going to put out whatever jumps out at us. So how long do you have to wait to use rental income for a new property purchase? Josh, I'll throw that your way.
Mike, I would love some more information on this. If it's a departing resident, so you own your home and you're going to rent it out and move to the new one, we can usually use that right away. Have a different situation. My mom is actually buying a duplex in Indiana, of all places, right now. And because she doesn't have a history of the rental income, she cannot use the rental income to qualify. Once she has a 1-year history of it on the tax return, we'll be able to refinance the loan. So she's doing a sort of a unique investor loan at a slightly higher interest rate now. In 12 months, we'll refinance that using the rental income. So there's a little bit more to it, but most times when it's a departing residence, you're going to be fine using rental income to offset that payment. There's some restrictions. If you want to ask, doesn't matter if you're in California or not, shoot me an email. We'll throw up the email here in a minute, but shoot me an email. I just have a couple follow-up questions. You give me the full scenario and we can get you the complete answer on that.
All right. Here's another good one. Question I get asked quite a bit lately. Would a lender approve a mortgage for a house if you waived the inspection? So at the end of the day, the lender doesn't care if you waive the inspection. They don't care if you waive the appraisal. In the cases where you waive the appraisal, if there's an appraisal required, the lender's still going to do an appraisal. A lot of people think when you waive the appraisal that there's not going to be an appraisal completed. No, the lender is still going to do an appraisal to verify that the value's there, whether or not you waive it or what have you. So just keep that in mind. Now, on the inspection side, the lender doesn't care whether you waive inspections or not. But if you're buying a house and there's repairs being requested and that sort of thing, you never want the lender to see those documents, because that can cause issues down the road by sending repair requests and certain getting detailed in items, home inspection reports, that sort of thing. Lenders don't need to see that information, and it can create issues down the road depending on who the lender is. But anything you want to add on that, Josh, about lenders and inspections?
Yeah. So for the most part, purchases 9 out of 10, probably 95 out of 100 purchases are going to have an appraisal. We do get appraisal waivers on purchases, but it's pretty rare. So again, the reason why the lender doesn't care about the inspection is on an appraisal, although they're not a property inspector, they're looking out for health and safety issues, anything major and obvious that the lender should be aware of when trying to determine, is that home good collateral for the loan? Now, an interesting point that I hadn't really thought of: what if you waive the inspection, you put 20% down, you got an 800 credit score, and you get an appraisal waiver? They really don't know anything about the property. Sort of along those lines, it's funny. I was updating, we had to sign a new broker agreement with one of our wholesale lenders. They put 12 to 15 pages of legalese in there, and we have to read through it because they try and put all sorts of bullshit in there that expose us to tons of liability that no one would ever agree to, but people sign it all the time without looking. And I got through one today, and they started getting, they put 3 additional reps and warranties that we have to give to them when there's an appraisal waiver. And it was interesting. It was good because, like, I think this is garbage. I shouldn't have to say this. I'm like, if I can't vouch for this, who can? So we're basically trying to make sure that, you buy a home that's been gutted and you get a great price on it. You want to put 20% down, you get an appraisal waiver. We know that would never pass an appraisal. So long way of going back to the inspection being waived. They generally have the appraisal to fall back on. I don't know of any lender having any problem with it with an appraisal waiver, but it's always a possibility.
No, and LaShonda, I see your super chat there. Well, I'm going to hit one question, then I'll go to your question, just because it's right here. It's pretty easy to answer. So just B82 White is saying, we waived our inspection contingency. Would it be wise to still get an inspection? Absolutely. I talked about that in a video, I think this week. I lost track on which videos do what at this point or say what. But yeah, just because you waive the inspection contingency doesn't mean you can't get an inspection. You should absolutely still get an inspection. It just more or less means that you can't go back to the seller and request items that would have come up in an inspection report, is more or less what it means. But yes, I would still suggest getting an inspection just to cover your bases, to make sure there's nothing crazy. I mean, you can't use it to back out, but if it's crazy enough and you can't find any other reason to back out, maybe it's worth losing the deposit over to get out of it. So just something to keep in mind there. But let's go to LaShonda's question here. She's from Texas. I saw that earlier. So thanks for joining us from Texas. Unfortunately, since down payment assistance programs aren't always viewed favorably, are buyers required to disclose if DPA is being used? I'm in Texas. Thinks in advance, fellas. So thank you again for the super chat, Josh. Down payment assistance disclosed. How is it reported on pre-approvals and that sort of thing?
It falls under any of the financing. Like, we've had this question, probably every other week. Hey, can I put on my purchase contract that I'm putting 20% down and then roll up with a 5% down loan? As part of the financing in California, on page 1 of the residential purchase agreement, there's a financing section, and we need to disclose how we're financing that property and how much money you're going to bring in at close of escrow. With a DPA, that can be greatly reduced. It can be nothing. So unfortunately, it does need to go on the contract, or you've misled the seller in the contract as to how you're going to finance the property. Probably the bigger picture, I 100% hear you that the DPA does make it harder to get an offer accepted. I would say be happy that you're in the great state of Texas. Texas has some awesome DPA programs. For the most part, here in California, ours are junk and not worth anything. So instead of focusing on the negative that it may make it harder to get an offer accepted, I would disclose it and be happy that you live in a state that has some good options for you.
Yeah, so sorry, not a lot, probably not what you wanted to hear, LaShonda. So but hopefully it's helpful. And again, there are buyers in this market getting things done with 100% financing on VA loans, FHA loans, that sort of thing. So there definitely is hope. Just keep at it. All
And
right, go ahead.
Jeb, rolling back to that inspection question, we
Yep.
got two or three of them here.
Yep.
It actually got me thinking. I told you guys last week I'm buying a distressed property from one of my clients in the city of Orange, and I didn't do an inspection on it. We walked through it. I walked it with my contractor, so I've had a contractor through it. I've been through it. I've flipped over 40 houses. So home was only built in 1998. It's on a slab. So there's lots of reasons why there aren't major issues there. But I will go so far as to say that it's got me thinking here, like for $300 or $400. I probably should have someone roll through it and make sure there's nothing massive there. I mean, I know the reason why I'm probably not going to is worst case, the big things that could be wrong with that property that I'm not aware of, probably $3,000 to $5,000 items. So I probably won't do it. It's a calculated risk. For a buyer that doesn't buy often, doesn't inspect properties often, I would say 1,000% of the time, always do a home inspection.
There you go. Two pros telling you to get a home inspection. So get a home inspection. We got Darren Buttery from Illinois, normal viewer here. Let's see. Zachary Gibson signed a contract for 272 before homes had reached where they are now. Home will be 2,700 square feet. I think he came up earlier. Hold on here.
I got it.
There you go. Boom. So last week he had, I believe, was the question of can the builder change the price? They were trying to change the price.
Change the price or cancel the contract. One of the two.
Something like that. So congrats on staying in escrow and the builder being the bigger person and actually sticking to what they say or not the bigger person, but sticking to their word and doing what they say they were going to do. So
let me throw this one up here, Jeb.
Right,
we got Alba Maria. This is one of my favorite questions because we go through this with buyers all the time. We have a loan approval for $820,000. Does that mean I can afford a house at that or close to that range? So as a mortgage professional, I have no idea what you can afford. I can only tell you what you can qualify for. I always start our conversations with that because oftentimes, 50% of the time, a buyer will say, yeah, we really don't know. We just need you to tell us what we can afford. So think about it. Let's say Jeb and I both make $10,000 a month. He has a wife and 3 kids. I only have a wife and a French bulldog. Who do you think has more money to live off of? I could probably afford a little more expensive home than he could. Or we might say, Jeb's Mr. Frugal. They eat Wonder Bread. They never go out. And Josh is nuts and drives a Ferrari and spends all of his money. Well, I can't afford as much of a home. You have to go back and look at your lifestyle. How many members of your family do you have? Where are you at? Do you own your cars free and clear? Are you someone that likes to lease a new car every 2 years? All of those things come into play. We're going to run the numbers and tell you under the guidelines, this is the maximum that we can approve you for. It doesn't necessarily mean you can afford it. And it goes both ways. I've had clients, that we get qualified and we go, you're easily qualified. No way, I need a payment at least $1,000 less than that. And I've had people that we're going to max at like a 57% total debt to income ratio on an FHA loan. And they're like, what are you talking about? We can afford way more than that. And you're just like, your personal finances way better than we can. We're only looking at the items that show up on your credit report, and we're looking at, do you have the down payment available and what your income is, and looking at the debt to income ratio within that context. You know what shows up on your debit card and your bank statement and your Venmo and your Zelle of all that money flying in and out of accounts every month.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people don't understand that when the DTI is calculated with a lender, they're only counting the items that show up on the credit report, and or if you have any child support or alimony or any of that additional stuff. Outside of that, they don't know what you spend on gas, what you spend at the grocery store, where you go on the weekends, They know none of that, and so that's why. We always talk about, where you should start in the home buying process. And a lot of people say you should start with a lender, and you should, but before that, you should have a budget. Like you should have an idea of what your disposable income is and how much you can, actually afford to put towards a property. Because like Josh said, a lot of people go the other way and they just start the home buying process and they say, what can I be approved for? 800,000, fantastic. That's what I'm buying, 800,000, and then get into it and realize, well, on top of that 800,000, I have a gas bill, a utility bill. I have all these additional expenses on top of it that they haven't really factored into, the process, the cable bill, the cell phone, all of that stuff, because that's not factored in. And this isn't to scare you, but it's to bring some clarity to the process and things that you should think about if you're taking that leap. So I feel like that was a good question there. Josh, Michelle's got one here. Do you think more and more people have gone for new construction and their prices are going higher and higher, that people are going back to try to buy a pre-owned home? So it's hard to say, Michelle. I think there's always been an attraction for new construction because it's new, less maintenance, all the things that come with new construction. The problem you have right now is, again, the builders have issues with regards to cost. Costs are going up. There are tariffs on some of where they get their wood coming from Canada and some of these other. There's just all these factors that play into the cost of building. That, in addition to restrictions that were put in after the last housing crisis that have just limited the number of homes out there. So, with the current crisis, I'm using the word crisis in air quotes, the lack of supply out there, people have gone to new construction because, quite frankly, it's been easier to get in a lot of ways. So you take the normal people that would normally be buying it, then you take the lack of available homes and these new construction homes coming on the market. People are going that route because they haven't had to bid on property and I'll quote, overpay. But with that said, a lot of these builders are changing the way that they approach that at the moment. So you might see people back away from the new construction if resale is if they have an opportunity to go resell because of where that cost has gone in some of these markets. And with that said, a lot of these builders are 8 months out, a year out in the process of building some of these homes. And as a buyer, that can be a little scary, especially if you don't know where rates are going to be. You don't know, if you have any hesitation in the housing market at all. There's a lot of unknowns there that can play into that, the fear of buying, something that's built out there. And that's to say, if they even stick to the plan of 8 months, it might take a year in some of these cases to do that. So anything you want to add on that, Josh, before we
No, for the most part, we've talked about this 1,000 times. Prices of homes are always supply and demand. And for the most part, in most areas of the country, there's not enough supply and too much demand for both of those. Historically, the new home buyer is very different than the resale home buyer. But right now, a lot of people, especially first-time buyers, is like, I'll take whatever I can get. So they're kind of mishmashed together and interchangeable. But we'll see. We'll see as we return to a more normal market, which we've covered ad nauseum here that we would love to happen sooner rather than later. But for demographic reasons and others, it may not come for a while. So we'll see. We'll see if builders adjust and start building more homes despite their constraints in terms of cost of building materials.
No. All right. I'd like to ask a favor, guys. It's my first time doing it tonight. If you're watching, you appreciate the content, you like this stuff, find value in it, hit that thumbs up and tell a friend to join us if they have a question. Jesse's got a question here. A good question, actually. Can I omit a car loan with only 9 payments left on it? So we talked a moment ago about DTI, calculating DTI. The lender's going to look at the credit report. They're going to look at what's on there. A lot of, your car, unless your car is in your business name, it's going to show up on your credit report. So Josh is going to address that question of whether or not it needs to be calculated.
Short answer is yes. If we have installment debt, so not a revolving debt like a credit card, but installment debts with 10 or less months remaining, we can omit them, but it's up to the underwriter's discretion. So 99 times out of 100, we omit them. When might it still be counted? So in this instance, we got 9 payments left, close to 10. If we're at a maximum debt to income ratio, omitting it, and it's an expensive car payment, it's $1,000 a month car payment, an underwriter might just say, no, I'm not comfortable with that. I don't know how you're going to make the payment for the next 9 months. Now, if it's 2 months left on $1,000 car payment and you're pinned, they're probably not, you're pinned on your debt to income ratio, the underwriter is probably not going to have an issue with that. And again, if it's a $300 car payment and it gets you, omitting it gets you under the debt to income ratio fairly safely, they probably won't have a problem with it. So again, most of the time we're going to be able to omit, but it's not a hard and fast rule that we can tell an underwriter, no, you're wrong, I get to omit that.
There you go. Good answer. Thank you, Jennifer, for moderating the chat. I see a lot of Jennifer Lego comments here, making things happen. So thank you for that. Mr. ABS, good evening again, fellas. Normal viewer here. So thank you for joining us again. Wife and I want to know what happens after being added to a new community's VIP list. How likely are we to truly be considered? When is the best time to get pre-approved? So I believe Mr. ABS is talking about new construction. A lot of times when they're building out these developments, there is a waiting list. And oftentimes there's a lottery to buy these properties, and they might, get people out there and pick numbers, and that's who gets the property. In some cases, there might be a VIP list. Unfortunately, I don't really know what that VIP list even consists of with the builder that you're referring to. It's like being on the VIP list at a club, right? If your buddy works the front door, you're going to get in pretty easily. Otherwise, it might be a little bit more difficult to get in. I don't know what that VIP really means in this situation. Josh, can you add any clarity to that?
No, I just think it's their priority buyer list, and most of the time to get there, you will have gone through the process of the pre-approval with their lender. So not only did you show up and say, I want to be on the list, sometimes they'll take a small deposit for that, and they're generally going to want you to go through that full pre-approval process so that they know that it's the most serious buyers who are not just serious about buying, are qualified and able to buy.
Well, and that was the second part of the question there is, when is the best time to get pre-approved? Now. If you're thinking about purchasing, if you're 3 months out, 6 months out, get
12.
pre-approved. 12 months out, Josh says. Get pre-approved, because I can't tell you how many times buyers think they're ready to go, and then they get pre-approved and find out that their income maybe isn't what they thought it was because of how it's calculated, or their credit score isn't where they thought it would be, or whatever the scenario is. I mean, you can come up with a list here. And so getting pre-approved early, it may seem like, unnecessary because you're not doing it, but it gives you clarity for one, and lets you know, hey, you're in a position, and doesn't mean you have to do it now. And, that pre-approval would be good for 90 days. And the only reason it expires in most cases, and I'll say expires, I'll use that word loosely, is because the credit report is really no longer good at that point, and the lender would likely need to rerun the credit. But they could probably, if you had a Josh and they pre-approved you and your credit expired and you still weren't in the position to purchase or ready, they could probably say, hey, look, you're still good to go, assuming your credit is where it is. Let's rerun it when you start getting serious and getting to that point. And so knowing now versus later would be good. But if you're on a VIP list and in new construction and ready to make that purchase, if you will, because you already know where you want to be, maybe the model or whatever it is, do it now. It gives it'll let you know exactly where you stand in the process. So I would recommend taking advantage of it. So
it's literally never too early to get pre-approved. And we talk about the difference between pre-approval and pre-qualification. If it's a year ahead of time, you might want to just do a pre-qualification. But the reason why I would still lean more towards pre-approval is exactly what Jeb said. Most people think they know how much money they make, and they don't know how an underwriter calculates their income. Most people think they know ballpark what a payment's going to look like. They have an idea of how much the cash to close is, but we can give you those numbers ahead of time. Say, hey, if you want to buy in 6 months, you want to buy in 12 months, and in this price range, you do qualify, you do have enough income, and here's what you need to be prepared to come to the table with in terms of cash for down payment and closing costs. So the certainty that it gives you in terms of planning, like a lot of times all of people come and say, we're about 12 months out, and we go through the numbers and they're not. They thought they needed $30,000. They need $18,000. Like, we can go look now. I mean, that's the most common thing that comes out of it. People are like, oh, we thought we needed this or that or the other. There's so many misconceptions, either in terms of just any number of things. So it's always a good idea. And from my perspective, people are like, well, I don't want to waste your time. We're not ready to buy yet. It's never a waste of my time. My job, any other loan officer's job, is to build relationships with people who are interested in buying a home sooner or later. even if you never buy, if I do a great job for you, you have and give you all the answers that you want and need, you have friends, you got family, you got coworkers. Hopefully you'll tell one of them. Again, my job is just to build relationships with as many potential borrowers as possible. So never too early to get approved. And most times you're going to go through that pre-approval process versus a pre-qualification.
All right. We got, well, I was going to get to Darren's question, which I will come back to, Darren, but Joey Crack just threw a $20 bill at me. Just hit me in the face with those gloves. Just smacked me. Thanks, Joey.
It's another case of 805, Joey. Our wives are really going to hate you people.
Following up on the car loan question, is it prudent to accelerate paying off a car loan to leave 1 or 2 payments left going into underwriting so it can be both omitted and not affect your credit score? So, I'll give my 2 cents on this, and then Josh can tell you this, his take on it. I would tell you that go in the situation that you're in, and see if you can qualify without having to pay off that car, and see where things stand. And if you're in a position where that's affecting your DTI or not putting you in the position where you want to be to purchase, then maybe consider paying it off at that time, because you can always pay it down during the process, and you might be able to pay it off through the loan however you want to do it. It's not necessarily something you have to do before. They can get an updated demand from the car loan company, the financing company, and get your credit report updated with that information at that time. And in some cases, the Joshes of the world, the professionals out there, can give you an idea of what that might do to your credit score as well, with some of these algorithms that they have out there to calculate paying down things and all that good stuff. But Josh, what's your take on it?
Pretty much exactly what Jeb said. The piece that I will add to it is that one of the things that drives me most crazy about anything is borrowers doing things before they come talk to us, because there's so many misconceptions. We see people ask questions all the time, and they're partly right, kind of right, not all right. And the whole reason why we're here answering these questions is to get people the exact right answer. Your mortgage professional can advise you exactly how to do the things, whether you need to do it, when you should do it, and how to do it. And we have the tools to determine what impact it's going to have on everything. So great ideas, but definitely have that conversation with your mortgage professional when you sit down to do that pre-approval interview, and get a game plan together that, hey, if we're going to do it, when does it make sense and how do we do it?
Oh, awesome. And thank you, Joey. I don't think I said thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Both of us do. And thanks for the support. It's greatly appreciated. Darren, I was going to come to you. We will address it now. So I think this is a good question for a lot of people out there that deal with cash. So Darren's asking a question, made a $1,250 cash deposit. I know it takes 2 months to be seasoned for a bank to be able to use it, but is that 2 months from closing date or 2 months from when you go under contract? So again, we'll let Josh address this question, but essentially when you deposit cash into an account, and if that money is needed to close the property, if you need it for reserves or you need it for the down payment or closing cost or whatever, the lender is going to ask you where that money comes from, right? Paper trail it. How did it get there? If you say cash, you got problems on your hand, because you can't document it in most cases. So Josh, what are thoughts on timeframes there?
So a couple things. This may or may not matter. So for an FHA loan, any deposit that is more than 1% of the sale price of the home needs to be sourced and seasoned. Okay. At $1,250, any purchase price over $125,000, we don't even have to explain it. So you're buying a $300,000 or $400,000 house with an FHA loan, you're absolutely fine. You say, well, great news, Josh, except I'm using a conventional loan. So with a conventional loan, you're looking at 50% of your monthly income, anything less than 50% of your monthly gross income. So let's say you make $10,000 a month, you make $5,000 a month. We could have a deposit of $2,500 that we don't have to explain. So this happens fairly regularly. You have a friend Venmo you some money, you any number of things. You won a betting pool at the Super Bowl, and boom, this money shows up, and you put it in your bank not thinking it's going to be an issue. Generally, those smaller amounts will be okay with, and it's not going to be a deal killer. Now, if it was $12,500, now we're probably going to be running into something we're going to have to explain.
No, that's a great explanation. Wasn't up to date on the 1% there. So let's see what we have here. So Apple Sticks. Apple Sticks 1. Love the name there. I have my celebration walkthrough May 14th, and the title company called me today to ask me if I wanted to do my walkthrough and closing the same day. Is that a good thing to do? Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. I don't know if this is new construction or if you're buying a resale property. Sounds like maybe it's new construction because there's a celebration walkthrough, but maybe not. Maybe they're just doing a celebration for you to walk through the property. Not sure. But if there were a lot of repairs that were being done in the property for any reason, you might want to schedule the closing the following day just so you have time to walk through the property and make sure those items were done correctly, by a professional or whatever it is being done. If you're buying a house and there's not, items that needed to be fixed or whatever, no reason you can't do it the same day. I mean, honestly, there's no reason you can't really do it the same day either way. But if you were worried for any reason that there might be items not addressed in the property, then maybe wait till the following day just so you have time to go back to them, to threaten them that you won't close until it gets done. Otherwise, if you do, close on the property, technically, if they've agreed to something, they still have to abide by the contract and do those items, but it's much harder to get things done after things close. If they refuse, it would be a court bet, it becomes a whole different issue. And so you would just want to make sure that whatever is said to be done is done. So long way of getting there, but hopefully that helps you in answering that question. Another super chat came in from Immune. Thank you for the super chat. $5, appreciate it. I paid off a lot of credit card debt recently. How many weeks should I wait to apply after they report, Josh?
So generally what you're looking for is the pop in your credit score and to not have to provide documentation that those things have been paid off. Let's say you paid off a bunch of debt to qualify debt to income wise. So you had 10 credit cards, they all had $100 minimum monthly payments. You paid them off, that makes $1,000 go away. So we want those to show as zero. Even if you had an 800 credit score, we want them to show as zero. Now, let's say we had a 700 credit score and we're expecting it to get up to 750, then we also want the improved score. The important thing is just the reporting cycle for the lender. They can be all over the place. Some of them report once a week, some of them report once a month, and some of them report anywhere in between. So you're going to want to wait at least 2 weeks, up to as many as 5 weeks to give a full month reporting cycle in case any of those credit cards that you paid off only report once a month. It just makes it easier on everyone. We want to get that credit score up and we want to show the zero balances. And a secondary piece here where I would tell someone not to worry about it too much. Let's say you got antsy and you jumped the gun and in 2 weeks you went in, you got pre-approved and they pulled your credit. Oh crap, only half of them show as paid off. It's not a problem because what you can do in that situation is 2-3 weeks later, we're going to pull another credit report. Your mortgage lender is going to end up paying for that second credit report, but you have a 45-day window within which you can pull as many mortgage credit reports as you want, and they're only treated as a single inquiry. So from an inquiry perspective, it's not too much to worry about. If you jump the gun, you can always pull one a couple of weeks later.
All right. And thank you guys for being patient. We've got a lot of questions coming here, and there's been a lot of super chats. We've had to jump around a little bit. We will do our best to get to each one of these. And Apple Sticks came back and said it's new construction. So I think you're probably fine, to do both on the same day in most cases. But just, if you have an agent, consult them and see what they say. Is there any way, Amanda's asking, is there any way to do FHA and needed repairs after you close, or do they all have to be done before closing? I'm scared the seller won't fix anything else. Josh.
Your lender generally will not allow the loan to close without the repairs being done. If they were to allow it, they would require an escrow holdback of the funds so that we'd have to have an estimate. Let's say in this instance, it was chipping paint all over the exterior of the house. We need to get a bid that says it's $2,000 to scrape and paint all of the chipping paint. And then $2,000, probably $2,500 of the seller's proceeds would be held back in escrow. And that work would need to get done as soon as you take the keys, get your painter in there, get it done, get it paid out of escrow. Probably not the best idea. I agree with you. you hate to be untrustworthy of people, but there's not really any reason for it not to be done prior to closing, unless the seller is in dire straits and just doesn't have the money to get it done. And there's always ways to make that work as well.
Awesome. And thank you, Apple Sticks One, for the $10 super chat. That was appreciated as well. I would go click on it and throw that on the screen, but I would lose my spot, and it took me about 2 minutes to scroll up to where I'm at right now, but I will post it to say thank you again. So I appreciate that. Jose's got an interesting comment here, and something I talk about when I go out and show property with buyers all the time. So I visited parents in Riverside, California this past weekend. Noticed most homes had 4 to 5 cars on the driveway, sidewalk, street, whatever. Maybe 2 families are starting to share homes, or adult kids can't afford to leave. So when I show property to clients all the time, I say, pay attention to the street. How many cars are parked on the street? How much available parking is there? Why? Because there are areas here in Southern California that are prone to multi-generational living. Not that it's a bad thing, but it becomes, parking becomes an issue. Those are things that, if you buy in a neighborhood, you want to have parking in front of your house, or you want to be able to have guests or whatever it is. And if you don't have enough parking in the driveway, those are things you need to pay attention to. Plus when you go into a neighborhood and there's cars parked everywhere, I wouldn't say that it necessarily reduces the value of the neighborhood, but it reduces the perception of the value in the neighborhood, which could ultimately lead to value, people not being less desirable. So, yeah, I mean, to answer or it wasn't really a question, it was a comment. I would say, yeah, there's a lot of multi-generational living. There's a lot of kids who have moved back home to live with parents because it's expensive to live. So you've got adult kids. I mean, take me, for example. I have young kids, but my wife and we have 3 kids. I mean, if all 3 of my boys were in high school and or driving age, there would be 3 cars. I mean, I have a 2-car garage, plus you could park 2 in the driveway. But, our garage is basically a staging area for the kids to play for the most part. Bikes, surfboards, all that good stuff. So we're using the driveway most of the time. So you got 3 additional cars that need to park somewhere if that were the case. And so those go to the street. So it not necessarily, adult kids or whatever. It could be just kids that are aging. And to that point, could be multi-generate, could be a lot of things. But as a buyer, make sure you're paying attention to that sort of thing. Because, and driving the neighborhoods at night and day, because during the day, maybe these people have to work. So you drive it at night, on the weekends, things to pay attention to as a buyer. An agent should be able to guide you. Yeah.
Jeb, I've told the story here. The first house that I flipped after the downturn in 2008, we bought from a gentleman for $265. He had paid $685 for the house less than 36 months earlier. So it was a 4-bedroom house in Anaheim. He had basically divided the house up into a 4-plex. So each bedroom had a lock on the door and was rented to a family. So a husband and wife in each one of those rooms, and then the 2 of them shared one of the bathrooms. So 8 adults living in a house. So I don't know if all of them had cars, but you're probably talking 5 to 6 cars minimum from that one house. So you did see it in a lot of neighborhoods when prices got out of control before, and people were buying homes and having to have more people under one roof. So there was more insanity then in terms of people buying homes that shouldn't have been, because they didn't have to actually qualify for the loans. I don't think we'll see as much of it in this cycle, but it's not to be unexpected at all.
All right. So Donnie was a W-2 income worker. He followed up on that from earlier. So good news on that, Donnie. So Al was asking a question here. Submitted 9 offers, no luck. Should I attempt to reach out to the listing agent? I would say only if you're not happy with your agent. I mean, don't think that your agent's the problem in this market. I mean, I've got a client right now, may or may not be watching, hoping to get some good news while I'm on this broadcast. If I get good news while I'm on this, I'm streaming her into this thing, whether she wants to be or not, because we're gonna tell her on air.
I thought you were saying, Jeb, that you were going to be streaking if you got the acceptance of the offer.
Maybe I will. It'd be like college.
Yeah.
We've written 25 offers, 25. And
At
maybe
least.
I'm the problem here. So maybe she should go to the listing agent. But no, to answer the question, I did a video on this. It's a tough market. I mean, you should have your own representation. I don't personally believe in dual agency. I mean, it can work in a lot of ways, but there's many ways it can't work. If you believe in your agent, I would say stick with them. And that can sound, self-grandizing, me promoting you to work with your agent you're working with. And it is to some extent because they've probably done a lot of work, but just trust the process. I'm a firm believer if things don't work out, with one property, there's a reason for it. And that might sound crazy, but things work out. So that's all I'll say about that. Let's see here.
You want an interesting one?
Sure. Let's throw one up there. I've been just going right down. All right.
So that's too hard to say. He's just going to be Dano. So Dano says, my girlfriend is currently in escrow for a home. She's purchasing it on her own without my help. If we get married, will my name get put on the title of the house? And then the most important thing, the postscript there is, I'm not a freeloader. So you don't get magically.
Later.
No, it's not a now and later. Danolanator. So anyways, it's way above my pay grade. But you will not magically get added to title after you get married. Premarital assets are sole and separate property. She could add you to title, and she would grant deed or quitclaim deed her interest in the property to the two of you. That can happen. The other way that you could gain an ownership interest, so California is a community property state. In most community property states, if you guys get married, you live in the property and commingled funds are used for making the monthly payments on the property, then there becomes a joint interest in the property regardless of whether you're on title or not. So it's complex, but most likely it's something where she would need to add you to title. So if you get married and she insists on keeping a separate bank account to make the payments on the house, you can kind of count on the fact that she's planning on keeping that a separate asset.
And there you go. That's good. Al Bundy's asking a question. Al's a regular viewer here. Thanks again, Al, for being here. Do you see VA offers as strong as conventional? It seems like many people put VA in the same boat as FHA. That's So it's unfortunate that VA loans are looked down upon, and they're looked down upon because oftentimes VA buyers are buying with zero money down, 100% financing, and they're allowed to do it. And quite frankly, if I was allowed to buy at 100% financing, I would probably do it too if I could do it. And there's many perks: no mortgage insurance, low interest rates, credit score is kind of irrelevant. I mean, as long as you have a decent credit score, you're in good shape. So a lot of perks to using VA. Unfortunately, in this market, they're not comparable to conventional loans. In any market, really, they're not comparable if you're looking at the down payment and those sorts of things in most cases, from a listing agent perspective or a seller perspective. But there's other reasons to accept VA, in my opinion, outside of those. But in this market, people are looking at price first. They're looking at down payment second. Those are the two biggest things that I see sellers looking at when making offers in this market. And those are sellers that I'm working with, and when I'm writing offers for buyers and getting feedback from the agent when we didn't get the offer, hey, what was the deal? It was down payment. And so, can you get them accepted? Absolutely. But they are maybe looked down upon in some ways in this environment.
And Jeb, there's two primary reasons why in a hot market, both FHA and VA. There's one primary reason that both FHA and VA are looked down upon. You already hit on, there's a minimal down payment, and VA and FHA buyers generally don't have a bunch of extra cash to make up a shortfall in the appraisal. But more importantly, even if they want to, they cannot waive the appraisal contingency. You have a FHA VA escape clause that everyone in the transaction signs that says if this property does not appraise for the sale price, the buyers cannot be compelled to complete that purchase. So even if they were willing to waive the appraisal contingency, the way it works out and is structured, they're not allowed to. I mean, they could give their word to someone that I'm not going to use that to back out, but they always have that escape clause to rely on. And it's unfortunate because VA is probably the most flexible, easiest loan to get someone approved for and to close on. But when we have these rapid appreciation and difficulty with appraisals, both FHA and VA are going to have a tough time.
There you go. And also, and if anybody out there is a veteran, you're in the military, you've served, thank you for your service. Appreciate you guys. And, when I look at offers and we get VA offers, I try to sell that sort of thing because it's a big thing, and appreciate that. So let's move along here. So Joey has a question that I think is interesting too. Who's allowed to be on site during an inspection and appraisal? So appraisals at this point, buyer is usually not really notified, not really involved. The seller can be there during an appraisal. In fact, the seller can be there during any of these. Buyer can obviously be there during the. I mean, they could be there if they knew when the appraisal was going down. I mean, but not really needed. They can't really talk to the appraiser. Can't really tell them any information, so it's not really necessary for them to be there. Agents can be there. Really, anybody. I mean, for the most part, but. Inspection is the big one. As a, typically your agent would be there. You as a buyer would be there. In the best case scenarios, the listing agent and the seller are not there just because I think transactions move more smoothly when you don't have the other side in those situations. People can talk freely and really get into detail, where some people are a little scared if the seller's there and or the listing agent. So just, keep that in mind. Let's see here. Josh, if you see something, pop it up. So Dan and Elena gave us $1.69. Josh, he was thinking about your 805. He was thinking penny draft.
He wanted me to have
elbow
one
room
more
in college, and thought that you could buy 805 for $1.69. So thank you for that, Dan. It's appreciated. Didn't even put a comment in there, but
I believe that's actually a PBR. That's not an 805.
Well, you can have a PBR then. I will allow that to take place.
Mr. ABS came back with another good question. If needed, would there be any scenario you would advise first-time homebuyers to dip into their 401k just to get more funds if you may be short on the cost of your home of interest? So the difference or the distinction there, a loan from a 401k can be a good source for that. I would be highly hesitant to tell someone to take a withdrawal. You have an early withdrawal penalty and you pay taxes. With a loan, you're going to pay yourself back with interest over time. So it can be a good source of bridging the gap. Let's say your appraisal came in $10,000 short, you needed $10,000. It would be a good source of getting those funds to get you over the hump if you were able to take a loan with an $80, $100 payment to repay yourself those funds. I wouldn't want to see you lose the 401k balance, but if you can take a loan to bridge a gap, it wouldn't be a bad idea.
All right. Kayla's got a good question here. Kayla's asking, what are some deal breakers when it comes to a home inspection? I'm under contract, windows are foggy, among other things. What should I be concerned with? So, in my experience, people respond multitude of ways here, right? So this is no easy way to answer this question. It's really going to depend on who you are as a person, what you're comfortable with. What I find in my experience is those that are first-time home buyers, are a little more hesitant and a little more worried about certain items in a property, and rightfully so. I wouldn't say any item is too small to want to get addressed, but just understand that it's bigger ticket items, costly items that I would personally be more concerned with. And that to you might be something completely different than it is to me. I feel like I'm relatively handy in some regard. So I can, if it's a small item, I'm not really that worried about fixing them, but I see buyers all the time that the items that I wouldn't be concerned with at all are concerns to them. But I would pay attention to things like the roof, Southern accent. Sorry. The thing that's on top of the plywood on top of your house, that thing, the roof, the furnace, the AC, the HVAC system, the water heater, appliances in the property, the bigger ticket items, because these are items that cost money to replace, and not just a little bit of money, but oftentimes a lot of money. So those are the items that I would fix up. Now, if you went through the house and every window was fogged up, and that typically happens when you have dual pane windows and the seal breaks in that window, and basically what happens is moisture gets in there. It's common over time, those seals break. And honestly, to replace one pane in a window, not that expensive to do. But if every window in the house is like that, that would be more of a concern. So not really probably giving you the answer that you need per se, but just what you're comfortable with is what you should move forward with. And if you're not comfortable, ask for it, right? I mean, worst thing they could say is no, and you can either decide to move on, or you can negotiate again and whatever, and try to get to a bottom line. So don't be afraid to ask for things. And but what I tell sellers all the time, or buyers all the time, is don't send a huge list to a seller, right? And have a bunch of nitpicky, like small little insignificant items on it, because what's going to happen is the seller is going to pick all the small items on there in most cases and say, well, I'll do these and I'm not doing the others. Pick the items that are important to you that you really want done. If you want smaller items on there, just know that, you know, those are probably the ones that are going to get picked over some of the others. But it's hard to say one way or the other. Just do what you're comfortable with. We did have another super chat. No, we got one. I don't know. Got $5. Is that from Jennifer? Jennifer, you don't need to give us your money. You are out there moderating this thing, but thank you for the $5. And she's saying mold issues are deal breakers for her. So yeah, if it has mold, depending on what your comfortability with that is, I mean, mold is one of those things that it's easy to sell as and raise fear and concerns and that sort of thing, because it comes with this negative connotation that, you know, it's bad, and it is bad, but not all types are bad. And some of it can be treated easier than others. And depending on your health issues, you know, whether or not you have health issues and that sort of thing, it can be more of a problem for you. So just, you know, some things are going to be more of a concern than others to some people. So I've got a lot of super chats coming in here. You guys are trying to get me to quit real estate, just take in super chat money.
Hey, they heard that if they contribute, they can come to the 805 party or go to the elbow room and get the $1.69 PBRs.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all this money and I'm going to rent a place and just invite everybody to come, and we're just
I like that
have
idea.
A party. It's great. Now, thank you guys. So thank you, Jennifer. Thanks, Howard. I'm going to get to the question here in a moment. Thank you, Immune, again, and Kayla. Thank you, Kayla, for the super chat as well. You guys are awesome. So Howard is saying 100-year-old shacks going for $250 in Montana. Yeah, man. Montana is one of those hot spots right now. It's a lot of people are moving to Montana. Beautiful up there, I hear. Haven't been there, but you know, I see Californians headed that direction just because of politics and taxes and all the other things that people in Montana benefit from. And so, you know, if 100-year-old shacks is what they're buying, that's what they're buying. But they're looking to get out of here, and a lot of people are doing vacation homes up there too, which is a big market.
It's even less, the Californians indirectly force that market. All the Idahoans are leaving Idaho and going to Montana to get away from the Californians that have taken over Idaho.
They're just migrating, just one big migration pattern. Everybody's going to end up in Maine.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So Immune has another question, similar question to the 401k question. Can you pull from an IRA account for 100% of a down payment on an FHA? And do you recommend it?
So if you have the money available in there, yes, it is an acceptable source of funds for your down payment. The big question is it a Roth IRA? So hopefully it's a Roth IRA. One of the cool things about a Roth in terms of saving for your down payment is you can put it in there and it can grow tax-free, and you can take all of the contributions out without any penalty. You can't take the growth, but you can take the contributions out. So if you're putting $5,000 a year in for 5 years, you've got 25 grand in there, maybe $10,000 or $12,000 of growth, you can pull that $25,000 out. Now, if we're talking about an IRA, you can't take a loan against the IRA. You would have to borrow from it, and you're going to have, again, 10% penalty for early withdrawal, and you're going to pay taxes as ordinary income. So it can eat into that balance pretty easily. So not a preferred source, but definitely an eligible source because it is your savings.
No, awesome. Good answer there. And we addressed that one. So let's move back up here just a little bit. And I know there's a lot of questions, guys. I said it earlier. I will doing our best to get to these. So just stay patient with us. And if you're watching and you appreciate this stuff, I know a lot of you do, hit that like button, the thumbs up there. It helps more people see it and helps us, educate home buyers and sellers in this market. Let's see what we got here. I saw a good question. Now I can't find it. If you see something, Josh, throw it up there. And we'll address interest rates here shortly too, because I know a lot of people want to know about rates.
So this, and actually I missed one here. There's another one very similar to this. So Jenny
Okay.
says, I was furloughed in March of 2020 and let go in October. So we've got March, which is what, the third month, through October the 10th. We got 7 months out of work. Started a new job with the same salary in November of 2020. Will this keep my husband and I from qualifying for a mortgage? No debt, 780 plus credit score. So no, it's not going to be a problem because we've got November, December, January, February, March, April. We're now 6 months back on the job. And that was the other question the gentleman was asking, was being out of work going to keep him from being able to refinance? And I think he only had a couple of months back on the job. For the most part, when we have a long gap of employment, longer than 6 to 8 weeks, we need to demonstrate you're back on the job and have a little bit of a history. So for the most part, you're looking at 6 months back on the job after being laid off or otherwise out of work for reasons other than like disability or paid family leave. You're looking at about 6 months. So you should be fine, Jenny. And the other gentleman, you'll be fine after 6 months back on the job as well.
Sorry, guys, we're trying to a text here that I need to return. Kristen asked a question here. So asking if a property is located in a flood zone A, is it bad for resale? So Josh can actually talk about flood zone A a little bit here. What I will tell you is that, so depending on where you're located, right? So I know like New Orleans, down in Bourbon Street, all that. What's the gas lamp? Gas lamp? No, that's San Diego. What the hell?
Yeah, it's San Diego. You're way off. I don't know. The French Quarter.
Yeah, French Quarter. So like I know that's all flood zone A, right? That got demolished during one of the hurricanes down there. Definitely hurt resale there for some period of time. Yeah, it can. It depends on the market that you're in. I mean, a lot of these flood zone A's, depending on where they're located, like we have one here in Huntington Beach. It's actually lower than sea level, believe it or not, the way that it's situated, and never have a problem with resale down there at the moment. Because the demand, right? And it hasn't flooded, right? It's been over that period of time and it's not really an issue, but if there were something to arise there, it would be a problem. And the reason I say Josh could talk about it is, Josh, go ahead. Yeah.
I in a flood zone A, and the crazy thing is, late 90s, actually early 2000s, the Army Corps of Engineers, there's a flood channel behind our house. We're actually like 2 or 3 feet below sea level with a flood channel behind our house, and they were supposed to be fixing the flood channel where it would drain to the ocean faster, and we were no longer going to be in a floodplain. Well, didn't work out. We're this tiny little city left in there, and over time, when I originally bought the house, our flood insurance was about $600 a year, and we ended up at one point it's like $4,800. It went from $2,500 to $4,800. This is silly, so I started checking around. We found an insurance company that specializes in flood insurance and doing elevation certificates. We got it down to like $800 a year, which is much better than $4,800, but it's still a monstrous nuisance because despite the fact that I'm below sea level, I don't think we're flooding anytime soon.
No, and the property is located in Westminster. Kristen, I don't know what in Westminster is flood zone A, unless it backs to like a drainage canal. I mean, but clearly you know. So I would say it's not really probably going to affect resale. You'll have some people that don't want to live there because of it, but I would say the majority. I'm not aware of anywhere in Westminster that is not desirable for most people because of flood zone A. So I think you're good to go. Hopefully that helps.
If you need a referral on a good flood insurance company that will do the elevation cert and get that cost down, we can definitely get you connected there, Kristen.
That's good information too. So if you do buy that, keep that in your back pocket because that's huge in this market.
Hey, Jeb,
yeah.
we had this one come up last night. We had a cross call.
And Logical Thinker's a normal supporter commenter too. So thank you for joining us and putting that out there.
So when a listing agent requires a buyer to be cross-qualified with their lender, does it result in another hard credit inquiry? 99 times out of 100, the answer is no. I'm sure there is some lunatic loan officer that's running credit reports when they're doing a cross-qual. For the most part, I never let my clients talk to another lender. It's not necessary. They're going to ask you the same things you've already gone through. So for the clients last night, we just reached out to the loan officer, says, hey, this is what I'm planning on sending over to you. Is there anything else you want to see? And he sent back, I don't even want to see all that. Give me these 4 things. So we sent the DU findings, the credit report, the income and asset docs, sent it over, and about six minutes later, they sent an email to the agent saying, hey, we're good. I don't think they could even do a thorough job in 6 minutes. For me, when I have to do a cross-qual for one of Jeb's deals, it's a 15-20 minute process to really make sure, because what we want to say is, Jeb, your seller is totally golden here taking this offer. If this person can't close this loan, we will. And the reason why it's a convenience issue for my borrowers to not have to do the cross qualification. It's a convenience issue for me that we don't get held up or them asking for things you don't need or just having a problem. So hopefully if you're being asked to cross qual, you're never going to have to talk to that other lender, and they're definitely not going to be pulling a credit report.
There you go. Got some good questions again. Thanks for the patience, guys. We are making our way through this whole thing. Michael Ocean, interested in a condo in SoCal. I'm interested in a few that's been on the market for 30 to 180 days. Have you seen offers accepted in the current market for less than list? Yeah, absolutely. I had a listing myself that was overpriced for a little bit. I don't know how many. It was maybe on the market 30 days or maybe just over, and it ended up selling for I don't know. We were listed at 875, sold for 820, and that's because it was priced too high to start. So, yeah, there's definitely properties out there that are on the high side and are overpriced. Maybe seller thought it was worth more. Maybe the listing agent thought it was worth more. You never know, but I wouldn't not offer less because you think you're in a market where everything has to be over the list price. Ask your agent for the comparables, look at them, and make a decision based on that. Let's see here. We got a lot of comments just saying thanks. Brendan and Ella's Fun Adventures, also a supporter, watched a lot of the forbearance stuff I did. Is it true forbearance is 2 years now? I'm not aware of anything that has changed since the last time I did it. I think it was 18 months that it had been extended to. I haven't seen anything that's changed that. So, most lenders were giving up to 18 months total. So nothing more unless that happened today. And if it did, I will do a video on it shortly.
We also have the geniuses at the CFPB proposing and most likely will implement foreclosure ban all the way through 2022. I do believe that anyone truly adversely affected by COVID probably should be eligible for that, but basically they're extending the, not even requiring proof that they were adversely affected, just saying you can't foreclose and start foreclosure proceedings till the end of 2022. So we're now at a point where we have a pretty good handle on what this is, and we have plenty of time to ask borrowers what's going on, how were you impacted, and determining whether the foreclosure proceedings should start. And you and I have talked here before. I don't think there's going to be a lot of foreclosures. The appreciation since COVID started has exceeded any amount of payments that would be tacked on due to forbearance. So if you were able to sell in March of 2020, even if you've been in forbearance since that time, you'd still be able to sell and walk away with equity. So it's kind of silly that our government doesn't sit around and talk things through or thinks things through before they make these decisions. We could be making much wiser decisions and being targeted in the people that are getting helped by these programs versus just big blanket sweeping foreclosure moratoriums.
No, absolutely. And we got a super chat from Richard here for $20. So thank you, Richard, for doing that. I saw your question and I was going to get to it. I promise I was. But you gave us $20 instead. And I appreciate that. Again, you guys are very gracious this evening, and it is very much appreciated. So got a good question here. From your experience, are sellers willing to do any repairs in this market? What is reasonable for the buyer to ask for given how hot the market is, the property appraised over offer? So absolutely. Sellers are willing to negotiate. I will tell you that, in fact, one of my listings right now, we're not actually doing the repairs. We're giving a credit for the repairs. A lot of times I try to get my sellers to give credits instead of actually doing the repairs. That way we're not liable if something's not done the way they want it done. And it just takes us out of the equation as a seller. But with regards to a credit and or repairs being done, yeah, I think as long as they're reasonable in most cases, you're probably in good shape, and you've got a good agent and not some crazy agent on the other side that tries to control the whole transaction. I mean, you need two agents working together, and that's what a lot of buyers and sellers don't understand, is that it takes both sides to work together collectively to get to a common goal, and that's closing the property. And a lot of times you have one agent on one side trying to negotiate on behalf of other people and not actually bringing stuff to their sellers to even enter that negotiation. But I would tell you, yeah, absolutely, you can get things done. You ask what is reasonable for the buyer, whatever is concerned for you. I mean, as the fact that you're getting a property that looks like is maybe worth more than you're paying for it, just keep that in your back pocket. They don't need to necessarily know that, but even if they do, just ask for what you're comfortable with. And if they're not willing to do it, ask for less and whatever. I mean, you have a little bit of leverage, the fact that you're in escrow, and depending on the situation on the other side, are they moving? Do they have a timeline? I mean, those things work in your favor in some cases. And I'm not telling you to strong arm the other side, but when you know the motivation of the other side, that works in your favor in getting some of these things done. Reasonable is one of those things that is hard to say, right? Because it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. I think if you're fair and reasonable in your request, then you're probably in good shape. So, if Lupe's watching, she needs to call me. I'm going to throw her up here on screen. So I'm going to text her real quick and see if she's got time for a call.
I know Lupe came through the channel. Did she watch the lives?
I don't know. I think I saw Lupita earlier giving me some crying faces on here, and I think Lupita, I'm putting two and two together, could be her. So, I'm gonna send her a link to join us here.
I've got an important one here. Joey says, no party needed, just help him get a house and then we can party at his place. So save the super chat funds and we're going to just do a big, massive kegger at Joey's house as soon as he gets it closed, gets in escrow and closed.
All right, Joey, party in New York, baby. All right, and we're not going to have any of that funky music. So hold on, Josh, pick a question here. I got to do something real quick.
Okay, got a good one here. TK4C, sell now or keep renting it out. I don't need the money either way. No mortgage, $1,500 rent a month. So we kind of talked about this last week in terms of there being a giant lack of supply because the institutional buyers are buying properties with cash and then just holding them for the yield. They're not selling. And for the reason of they're getting capital appreciation, the properties, even if they only go up 3 or 4% a year, you're getting nice appreciation. But most importantly, no idea how expensive this home is. But let's say it's a $500,000 home. $1,500 is $18,000 a year. So even on a $500,000 property, that's a 3 or 4% yield. So the cash yield on the actual investment being held before you factor in any appreciation. From that standpoint, if you sell that home, where are you going with the money? You're either going to have to invest in other risk assets or you're going to get 0.5% parking it in the bank. So I still think the market has more room to run, and I think you're going to get a better yield from the rents on the free and clear home than anything else you do with that money right now.
There you go. Michael DeRee, normal or not a normal, but a regular the viewer here is saying people in California ending up in Texas. They're ending up everywhere, man. Anywhere where it's less expensive. So we've got a guest that we're going to throw on the chat here. We're going to see how 3 people look on this deal. I have no idea, but we're going to figure it out because we've never done this before. So everyone,
hello.
We are going to welcome Lupe to the show this evening. Lupe is a viewer. She found me through YouTube. In fact, she found Josh, I think, first, contacted Josh to get pre-approved. And I've been fortunate enough to help her and Ray try to find property. And Lupe, I have good news. Your offer has been accepted.
Nice.
Awesome. So this comes after how many offers have we written?
Oh, I think you said how many earlier, and I was like, what?
I guessed. I was guessing 25. So we've written 20, at least 25 offers. I mean, hell, we've written 25 offers probably, and I will count. I will find the number.
It was
But we've written a
5
lot
alone
of
this
offers.
weekend.
What's that?
It was 5 this weekend alone.
There you go. So, I mean, a lot of offers have been written, and I am ecstatic to say that you
That is
you have
awesome.
been accepted. That is fantastic.
And you
This
guys are
this
amazing.
is as good a news for me as it is for you.
And
I'm
hey,
super
and
happy.
I have an easier time than Jeb does. He's showing the properties and writing the offers up. I'm getting, I've had plenty of experience now sending videos to listing agents saying, no, Ray and Lupe are awesome and they're well qualified and we're going to close it and it's going to be perfect. And they tell us how nice the videos are. And then they go, oh, sorry, we took another offer.
No, exactly.
That is
They
true.
compliment us on our offer, tell us how awesome everything is, and then they don't go forward with us. So it's
Yeah.
frustrating. But I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I wanted to say congratulations. Awesome.
I was waiting for it. I was like, if he doesn't call me on live, I'm gonna be sad.
No, I've been looking at my text messages waiting for it to come through. So we are good to go. So we got some communication we need to do, which we will we'll talk in the morning. How's that?
We will. Sounds great.
Awesome. All right. Tell Ray congratulations as well. All righty. We'll talk soon.
I will.
Congrats.
All righty. Bye. All right. So that's the best thing we've done on this show since we started this thing.
It's the good karma of your video you posted today of buyer success stories. Now you have your own buyer success story.
I wanted to get that accepted earlier so I could add it in there because it's been one of those that's been frustrating for her. It's been frustrating for me, not because I'm showing them a lot of property, but because we've been writing solid offers and getting solid feedback and not getting anywhere. And it's just just know that if you have a good agent, they actually care. And I do care. So,
and I would say, Jeb, of those 25-ish offers that you wrote, 5 of them I thought we had a very good chance to get.
Absolutely.
Talking to the
1000%.
agents, feedback, I thought we had a very good chance of getting at least 5 of them. That was nuts.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. So let's get back to it here. Let's see. We got some congratulations for as well, which I'll throw up here in a moment. Kaylar. I owned in Bloomfield, New Jersey, plan to buy another home in Cobb County, Georgia. Should I refinance or sell? How's the Cobb County market? I have no idea how the Cobb County market is. If it's got low supply and then it probably has high buyer demand and sensing that. I'm not sure where Cobb County is. Are you looking that up, Josh?
It's in Georgia. I'm looking at.
Well, I see that.
Well, I don't know how much more specific you want to be. The state's like a rectangle, like it's in one of those corners.
Too funny. Anyway, should you buy or should you refinance or sell? I mean, it depends. You got to figure out your goals, right? What you're trying to accomplish with the property, and what you're trying to do there. I can't answer that for you. Keeping a property as an investment and buying. I'm assuming you're talking about buying another home. As your primary. So do you want to be a landlord? Or do you are you in a position where you've got potential capital gains exemption that you want to take and not be taxed on it in the future? There's a lot of things to roll into it. It's not as easy as just saying yes or no. But if I tell people, if you're able to hold real estate and it makes sense, why not? I mean, over time, it's going to continue appreciating in most cases. Especially if you have a long-term view. So just come at it from that. I know it's, not a detailed answer, but.
Do you want to know where Cobb County is?
Let's hear it.
Marietta, Georgia, just north and west of Atlanta. Median home values right now about 311, which is up 10.7% year over year, which is pretty consistent with everywhere through the country. So it's a strong market, just like everywhere. It's going to be competitive. Maybe one thing you throw into that buy-sell decision, do you have a much bigger down payment if you sell versus refinancing? You can be one of those strong cash offers, almost like the Californians running to Texas and ruining everything.
Yeah, exactly. So to answer the question, how's the market there? It looks like it's hot. So just keep that in mind. Work with a pro. So the dude here gave a $50 super sticker as well. I swear, I keep doing this, guys. I'm just going to quit real estate. I'm gonna do super chats all day. I'm just going to stay live all day, fill my entire life.
YouTube liver.
But thank you for that. So the dude is actually an interesting situation. He lives here in Huntington Beach. He's contacted me directly. He's got a for sale by owner. So he's trying to sell the property himself. And he's got a 1-bedroom with a loft, and it has the potential to become a 2-bedroom It's priced right around 500,000. It's in the Seabridge community, so if you know Huntington Beach, it's in Seabridge, and he's trying to do it by himself. And I told him if he threw it out there, I would throw it up there for you guys to know about. So if you're looking at Huntington, looking for a potential investment property, looking for a property where you can do some work and maybe add value to it, this could be an opportunity for you to do that. So if you want information, just reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with the dude. So thank you for that. And let's go, Josh. Let's see what you got, buddy. I've completely lost my place. I have no idea where we are. So sorry, anybody out there.
Well, here, this is a decent question. In this market, is it a good idea to put 20% down if there's a possibility?
You just wanted to say this.
Why?
You just wanted to say the numbers never lie.
We haven't even thrown it out this week. You beat me to the punch. Numbers never lie. You want to compare it side by side. People are often surprised with interest rates as low as they are. The additional down payment doesn't save them as much on the monthly as they would like. So look at a comparison, a 10 or a 15 or a 20% down. But Jeb can answer to this. How much does that 20% down speak to the seller? We want to, either way, when you're putting that offer out there, even if you did 10%, say, I got 10% down, but I have another 10% available if we were to have an appraisal issue.
All right. Awesome. Sorry, got lost here as I was looking at the actual counter offer that came in of Lupe's deal. So signed. I got word, but now I got the signed deal, so we're all good. James is about to shower, he says. So thanks for joining us and showering there.
Is
James.
he taking his phone to the shower so he doesn't?
I don't know, but you know what I started
content?
to think. I started to think, Josh, the other day, as you know, the guy that was riding the motorcycle home and said he was able to listen to us. I started thinking as I was driving home, I'm like, how the hell did he type the message in there? As he's driving, like, I guess voice deal, like you can just, do the voice deal, like Siri, type into YouTube, deal. And it came up, but I'm thinking, holy shit, like, what is that guy doing? He's driving home and texting us. Anyway, that's off track there, guys. Sorry.
I got one here for us. Jesse says, my lease ends in January 2022. So what, 9 months from now, but I have the funds to make a strong bid and cover 20% down plus extra costs. Should I consider buying this year or wait until the lease end? You're in Texas. Find out what it would cost to break the lease. If the rental market is strong and they're able to release it, or if you're able to sublease it and it doesn't cost you an exorbitant amount of money, homes are going to be cheaper now than they are in January. Is it going to be a huge enough amount that you would want to pay a big penalty to break a lease? Could be, but as Jeb is fond of hearing me say, numbers never lie. So just find out, do your research, find out what it would cost you to break the lease, if there's any subleasing options, the viability of that, because we're probably looking at another 5 to 10% between now and next January.
Oh, good. We got a question here. I saw one that I was going to click on and I lost it. But Stephanie said what really helped her was a letter to the seller. So, that's one of those things that's kind of a great area at the moment based on fair housing. We've talked about it. I suggest if you can do it, your agent's willing to submit it with the offer, you should do it. So listen, be like Stephanie. So anyway, somebody was asking about a vaccination card. Can a seller require? I lost it. Anyway, I'll answer the question without actually having it in front of me. I kind of read it, didn't read the whole thing, but if you see it, pop it up there, Josh. So somebody asked about, can a seller require, a vaccination card from a buyer to more or less let them into the properties? What I got from what I read briefly. And the answer is, the seller could technically do whatever they want with regards to showing their home, but understand if they require that, they're limiting potential buyers. They're hurting themselves in some ways. I would, if it were my client and they were the seller, I would suggest, maybe going away for a couple of days and allowing, whoever to come through the property, vaccinated and or not. Here in the state of California, we actually have a form that has to be signed. It's an entry form. It has to do with coronavirus. Basically says that you don't have any of the symptoms. You haven't had any of the symptoms in the last 2 weeks. You haven't been around anybody, so on and so forth. And you have to sign that on every single property that you enter. every time you enter it. So if you enter the property today, you view it and you want to go back and see it tomorrow, in theory, you're supposed to provide a new one from that given time to for that lapse in time you haven't been there. Can a seller require it? They answer the question, yes, they can, but they're only hurting themselves by doing that. So, crazier things have happened. How's that? I would not be surprised by that at all. Michael DeRee has another question here. I tried to find this one earlier because I saw it come in and then I lost it. Why do lenders use your pre-tax income to qualify you for a home, Josh?
It's really hard to determine what the tax load is for any buyer. Different people have different deductions, are in different tax rates, different family sizes. So it's the easiest way to have a safe and level playing field versus trying to account for different tax rates. And if we look, you may be the person, my dad was this guy. He made how much money? They took all these withholdings. And if you looked at his net income, it didn't look that great, but he loved getting his $8,000 or $10,000 tax refund at the end of the year. So gross income is easy to calculate. Net income, true net income is more difficult to calculate.
There you go. Let's see here.
Jose had a follow-up question. So not only does he want to know, should he do 20% down? It says 30 versus 15-year.
Yeah, why don't you get into rates? Let's talk rates. That's what I meant to ask you earlier.
I'm going to answer Jose's question before I talk about
All right,
rates.
let's do it.
So 15 years, a lower interest rate. Is this a good idea if we can afford it? First-time buyer. So obviously, you're going to build equity faster. You're going to pay it off sooner. That's the good part. You're going to pay a lower rate of interest. What I will say is when I started in the business in the 90s, when rates were 7.5% to 9%, and you could get a 2% lower interest rate, a 1% lower interest rate with the 15-year, it made a lot of sense because you only increased your payment about 20%, but you took 50% of the lifetime term of the loan off. So total payments over the 180 payments was massively lower than the 360. Well, now rates are much, much lower. We're looking plus or minus 3% for your conventional loan, and maybe you're at 2.25%, 2 3/8 on the 15-year. You're talking about a 50% increase in the monthly payment. So for most people, you look at it and you're like, that's just, it's a big jump to cross. So for most people, it's not worth it. But for the reasons that you mentioned, if you can afford it, it can be. I would much rather see you save that additional 50% in the principal and interest and invest it and build up your savings and reserves that way. But again, it's an issue where numbers never lie. Let's pencil them out side by side, and one of those numbers is going to speak to you. Now, interest rates in general, Jeb hit on it earlier that we had CPI figures this week, PPI and CPI. PPI late last week, CPI, we knew they were coming in hot. They were even hotter than expected, both of them. And I wanted to say that the bond markets, the interest rate markets yawned and shrugged it off, but they didn't. They actually rallied and improved. So one of the questions that I've been asking in the last couple of weeks were the bond markets looking forward and knowing that we were going to see hot inflation numbers in March, April, and May, and already discounted that in the big increases that we saw in February. And for the most part, that appears to be what has happened because we had a nice little improvement, maybe 1/8% better in rates. So for conventional borrowers, you're looking, if it's a standard balance, loans under the 548 figure, you're looking probably back into the high twos, 2.875, 2.99. And if you're looking at a government loan, I priced one out this morning for someone who didn't even have the greatest credit. It was a 650 credit score, and they were at 2.5, 0.0 lender fees. And you can get lower than that if for some reason you wanted to pay points. So rates are good. Even at their worst in late February, they were still good. They're better now. It'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few months. If you've watched here, you listen to these reports, I'm a firm believer that rates are permanently low and likely to go lower from here. It may be a year or 2 or 3 years before we see them significantly lower. I don't think rates right now should be a deciding factor for anyone. We don't have to worry about them going significantly higher. We don't have to wait for them to get significantly lower. They're really good right now. And take that for what it's worth. The market for buying is going to be dictated largely by being able to get a home. If you can get a home, now's the time to buy wherever the rates are at.
Good update. Josh, thanks for doing that. We got some stuff coming in here. We got Michelle Kim. Really admire how hard you two work and extremely thankful for the wealth of knowledge you share with us. $20. Thank you, Michelle. You are awesome. as well.
Michelle is more awesome than you know. We actually are working with her right now. She's hoping to get an offer accepted like everyone else in a tough price range here in Southern California. But super awesome person, super well qualified. We're going to do our best so that hopefully she can be a success story on here like Lupe.
Awesome. And then earlier I saw somebody ask about a link to get in contact and get approved and all that good stuff. We'll throw that up here shortly. Just hang tight. We got some comments I want to get through before we do that. So Seer Guru, also another regular post comments on a lot of videos that I put out there, always has insightful information, saying that we're doing well and topics are down to earth. Love it. So I appreciate these comments, guys. These are what keeps the information coming, and we appreciate it. It's often hard to think of content that's actually useful for you guys, and not trying to be overly optimistic or overly pessimistic about topics, and being real. I mean, bring real value to stuff that you can use, and these lives are honestly the best way to do it. I feel that. And so thanks for the feedback. And if you find value like Seer Guru, hit that like button. Like I played that in there. It was like a roll right into it, like a story, like I was a newscaster, just rolled right into the next one. Mom of 4 boys has a question here. Josh, been having a hard time finding out when I will be ready to even qualify for a home loan. Please help. And she's followed it up with the 2 lenders I've talked to never get back to me. I've never bought before. Something I want to do for my kids. She has 4 boys. I have 3 boys. 4. Wow. You are a
4 is
saint.
Overkill. Yeah.
You are a saint. But anyway, please help. Low income family willing to work hard to do this. So Josh, what would your guidance, what would your advice be for somebody that doesn't know if they can qualify? Where should they start? What should they do?
Well, she already did the right thing. She reached out to 2 lenders. Unfortunately, they never got back to her. And when you say low income family, there's a couple things. Low income family, there are lenders and there are realtors out there that, hey, if you're not buying a $500,000 or $750,000 house, they don't have the time to deal with it. It's kind of a silly and short-sighted view of it. Some of the most rewarding situations we get into are helping someone on a lower cost purchase, but it's going to make all the difference for them. So I would hope that we could get you in contact with someone. Reach out to us when Jeb does put up the contact info. Shoot us an email, shoot Jeb an email, shoot me an email. We have lenders around the country. They will absolutely give you a call. My concern or worry is that rather than having the courage to tell you, hey, we can't get you into a home right now, here's where we would have to be to get you into something, they're just ghosting you. So again, it just comes down to the integrity and the quality of the person that you're talking to. Unfortunately, you've talked to a couple that didn't have the decency to walk you all the way through the process. I mean, sometimes the answer is never no, but sometimes the answer is not right now. And here's what has to happen for it to happen in the future. And if that's the case, we'd love to get you in contact with someone that can give you those answers.
There you go. So reach out. Josh, if you want to throw that up there real quick here, I'm about to click on something. I don't want to lose my spot.
Look, we even have them in the right order. Jeb on the left and Josh on the right.
There you go. So email either of us there. Hopefully we're not going to keep that up there long. We'll throw it up at the end as well, but gives you, just reach out, put you in touch with somebody that can hopefully guide you in the right direction one way or the other. Let's see here. Where was the one? I lost it. That's great. Vanessa's got a question here. First time buyer looking by myself in San Diego. So far, I've been outbid on 7 homes. How can I get a fair deal in this market without waiting years to buy? So, no real solid answer for you here, other than make sure you're working with a solid, real estate agent that's helping you buy a property. If you've got somebody there, take their, use their advice, use their experience. Hopefully, they have experience, especially in this market, and just, do not necessarily, they shouldn't be telling you what to do, but they should be guiding you and giving you recommendations of things to do. And again, I don't know if you were here a little bit ago. I mean, I've written 25 or so offers. I mean, I could count them here, but I won't bore you with it. For one client, it took us 2.5 months, 2 months. I don't know how long we've been looking, and they finally got an offer accepted today. Has it been
longer than that,
that?
Jeb, like 3. And I don't need to pump Jeb up. Jeb knows he's good at this, but it's not just a matter of being good and doing well and having success. There are a lot of realtors who would not be willing to show you 25 properties, much less write 25 offers. When it's easy, they're happy to throw you in the car, show you a home, and write that offer up and wait for a commission check. If you look at the hourly rate, in our industry, you don't get paid by the hour. If someone buys the first home and gets their offer accepted that you show them, you get paid a lot per hour. When you write 25 offers and probably show them 50 homes, the hourly rate isn't all that much. But again, you get to a point, Jeb's competitive and I'm competitive. You just want to win. You want to get these people something. And I was going to say the same thing, Jeb. You saw the smile on Lupe's face. It was well worth writing 25 offers. Her and her husband are tough. They're dedicated. They know what they wanted for their family. So hopefully you have a realtor that's giving you good advice and putting you in a position to be as likely to be the winning bid as possible. But sometimes, especially in this market, you just got to be tough and stick it out.
Yeah, and sometimes, going through those losses and getting the offers gives you what you need to make the right offer, right? So sometimes you're not comfortable putting in a price or doing things a certain way because maybe again, not saying this is your case, but oftentimes buyers think that they know what they're doing and not want to take the direction of the professional. And, everybody's a pro until they need one. And I've seen it many times in my career. People want to take a certain path and not getting the result. And ultimately they end up going the way they should have gone to begin with. And it works out. So not to say that's your case, but just, keep at it. It will, things happen for a reason. With them, for example, we looked at a lot of properties in different neighborhoods, different cities, and actually know the area that they're buying this property pretty well. It's a great neighborhood, in my opinion, better than a lot of the other ones that we saw for whatever reason. And so for me, this working out the way it should is because, hey, I know they're in a great area that is desirable and will continue to appreciate and all that good stuff. So,
well, Jeb,
with that.
Something you said there is important because in January they wrote an offer and you got a counter, and it was, I think it was up to them. They could have accepted it and moved forward, and that was one of the second or third offers you wrote. And I said, were they even interested in that area? And you told me like, not really. So I talked to her, says, yeah, it would be nice to get something. We hear how competitive this market is, but and she goes through like 3 reasons why that wasn't the right one for them, and they were willing to move on, and it meant a lot of pain for them and difficulty for you. But like you said, they're in a great home in a great neighborhood that resonates with them. So whatever you do, I would rather you miss out on a home. Don't settle. I would rather you miss out on a home all year and pay more next year than get stuck in a home in a neighborhood that you don't want and don't enjoy living in. There you go.
So Willing is saying, should I buy a house or invest $20,000 in Robinhood and buy Dogecoin? So let me tell you my story about that, because I'm kind of pissed here for a moment. So about 3 weeks ago, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to take $1,000 and I'm going to buy this crap just to have money in it. If it goes up, fantastic. If it doesn't, I mean, not that $1,000 isn't important to me, because it is, but I'm like, you know what? It's a risk I'm willing to take. Me and a buddy are talking. He puts it in his order. He gets his accepted. I think at the time it was just at 5 cents. Like it just passed the 5 cent threshold. I went to my account, and they wouldn't let me trade it. So I was like, what the hell? So I went to another account. Like I have a couple different accounts. So I went to the Webull account. They wouldn't let me trade it. I could bring it up, but it wouldn't let me execute the trade. So I'm like, what the hell? So I had to open a completely different brokerage account. Sidetrack here, guys. Sorry. And put money into it, deposit money. And I was like, you know what? I'm not doing that. Like, whatever. Well, here we are today. It's tripled from where I could have bought it. And not to say, whatever, maybe it goes back down, but I'm pissed, right? I'm pissed because, I could have made $2,000 in like 2 weeks. Anyway, that's my thing. So should you buy it? I don't know, man. There's a lot of hype out there. It's one of those things that is a risky deal, right? I mean, crypto, I don't like crypto. I mean, you guys are going to hate me. I'll probably get hate comments and this sort of thing. I'm traditional, like investor equities, things that are solvent, companies that are selling products and have some backing and have profit and loss statements, all that good stuff. That's where I see my money going. I was investing a small amount just for sheer joy of seeing it go to $1,000 and me being able to do this all day. But that's a lot of money to throw in there. So I don't know if you're being serious or not, but I would say buy a house long term. Good. Now, if it goes to like $1,000, then obviously I was wrong and you should have bought Dogecoin. But anyway, let's see here. All right, here's a good one. Can Prop 19 exclusion apply to a child's ability to purchase an owner-occupied duplex and live in one side and rent the other out? So Prop 19 is a proposition in the state of California that was just passed, actually just went into law, I think. Is it law? Is that what it's considered? It just passed. Well, yeah, it went into law recently. And so now it is basically what it does is when somebody sells a property, they used to be able to pass it down to an heir or what have you, and that heir could avoid taxes on that property or a reassessment of property taxes on that property, even if they kept it as an investment, so on and so forth. So that's a really short version of what that is. But the question here is, can it, Josh, I'm reading the question. I don't know if you,
So
to purchase.
yeah, the part that I'm not
shouldn't.
following is purchasing an owner occupied. The Prop 19 doesn't apply to purchases. You
Right,
would
yeah.
be inheriting a property. So it's a parent to child, grandparent to grandchild exclusion. And it used to be, so I actually had this situation happen last year. My father passed away. My sister and I inherited his condo. And because it was last year, prior to Prop 19, we did not need to move into the property to be able to keep his tax rate, which was very valuable to us because his taxes are like $1,200 a year. If we had got reassessed to the current value, then we would be paying $5,000 a year. So it's like $400 a month in perpetuity to my sister and I. If we had got it now, we inherited, one of us would have had to move into it as our primary residence to get that exclusion. There were some good parts to Prop 19. That was the downside. That was the giveaway that when you inherit a property, you're only excluded from reassessment. And if you're in any other state than California, you're going, what are these crazy people talking about?
Yeah.
Due to Prop 13, we have a maximum increase in your property taxes of 2% a year. My dad bought that condo in 1987. So those 2% increases have taken his taxes up to like $1,400, $1,500 a year. If he'd been reassessed every year like other states do, he'd be about $5,000 a year. So as us inheriting it pre-Prop 19, we get to keep his tax rate. Now, anyone coming post Prop 19, they will have to move into that property. I have a buddy, it's a buddy, I don't know if Jeb knows, but one of our friends, his father passed away over the weekend, and talking to him on Monday, he's going to be moving into the property so that he'll get that exclusion. But it's an interesting situation in your situation in terms of purchasing an owner-occupied duplex. I'm not sure where Prop 19 would fit into that.
Right. No, I agreed. And that's, yeah, exactly. So you nailed it. If there's more there, put it and we'll try to address it. There was a good question here that came up. Where is it? Oh, should I pay a delinquency? So Laverne Thomas is asking, should I pay a delinquency that is over 2 years old for an FHA loan, Josh?
Pay a delinquency that's over 2 years old for FHA loan.
So
Oh, like a collection,
sort of collection,
like a collection
probably.
account?
Yeah.
Only if it's necessary. So anything that goes to charge-off status, you don't have to pay off. A collection, depending on the size of it. So for FHA loans, anything in aggregate over $2,000. So if we have one collection and it's over $2,000, you will need to pay it off, or we would have to count 5% of the balance against your debt ratio. So let's say it's a $2,500 collection. We need to pay it off. We'd have to put $125 against your debt ratio to qualify if we weren't going to pay it off. But your loan officer should be able to advise you on that and tell you whether it's required or not.
All right. I'm sure I missed some questions up here at the top. Going to go to a couple here at the bottom. I know we're getting close to the 2-hour mark, so we're going to wrap this thing up here shortly. Let's see here. Let's go with something that is. So go with this one. Michelle gave us a super chat earlier asking a good question here. What do you think of escalation clauses? I think they're great as long as the agent on the other side understands them. What do I mean by that? a lot of agents unfortunately don't understand how escalation clauses work. I see it all the time because I'm writing offers. Out of those offers I wrote with the client we talked about earlier, every single one of those had an escalation clause. Almost all of them had an escalation clause. I can't tell you how many times the agent on the other side didn't understand what I was saying when I put that in there. So just make sure that your agent's explaining it to them in, either in a cover letter or in, conversation, how it works. I mean, it seems pretty self-explanatory, but some people don't understand it. And quite frankly, a lot of people don't use it. I mean, one of the offers that I thought, we would get accepted yesterday used an escalation clause. It didn't get accepted, but we used an escalation clause. And the agent on the other side said, my seller was impressed. They had never seen anything like that you guys were willing to, do an escalation clause and bump up and so on and so forth. So I would say they're great as long as everybody understands how they work. So, use them, at your leisure, but make sure that, everybody knows what and how it goes down.
Jeb,
yes,
what percentage of the time do you have to educate the agent on the other side on what it is and how it works? And of those, how many of them understand it?
Are we talking or are we just talking in general?
Escalation clause. What percentage of listing agents do you have to explain the escalation clause to?
50 to 60%. Easily.
And would you say at least 50% of them, even after you explain it, don't understand it?
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty accurate. I mean, they're kind. I mean, I wouldn't say they're a newer thing. They've always been in contracts, right? They've been in different types of contracts, not necessarily residential. People got smart and started using them in residential. We've been using them for 4 or 5 years now in contracts with buyers. I mean, long before a lot of people knew about them. I actually learned about them from an agent in my office who was using them. And I was like, that's pretty clever, because we got an offer from her and it used an escalation. I'm like, hey, pretty good stuff. And so we started doing them ourselves. But yeah, you just have to understand how it works. I mean, it basically takes you above the highest offer up to a price or infinity if there is no price. And so you just need to make sure everybody is on the same yeah, everybody's on the same page with that. So
here at the end of 2 hours, are we okay having a little fun here for the last couple minutes?
Sure. You gonna post a video? Are you posting a video of us from 2012?
No, not that much fun. We're going to post a video of the 805 party when you and I take down 4 cases in one evening, and we'll make our lives video. So Chris actually followed up to add to the Prop 19 question. It's a property with a mortgage deal. He wants to sell and relocate. So again, my brain, because my father passed away, thinking in the context of an inherited property can also apply to a sale. And I think your question was, hey, is the duplex? Shoot me an email. I would love to track down the answer for this. I know at least 50% of it that's going to be owner occupied can be excluded from the reassessment, but I'd love to track down the answer for you. I like little questions like this. So Chris, if you can, shoot me an email and we'll get an answer for you. But then the actual fun part, Jeb, is they say on the internet that you should never feed the trolls. But we've got one over here, and I just feel like it'll be fun. So YOLO followed up on the question about Prop 13 and said that's why California is broke. Actually, California, despite Prop 13, is 14th in the nation in per capita property taxes. So we pay plenty of property taxes in California. We have many, many other crazy, insane reasons why our state is actually broke. And then YOLO followed up with another question. Most insane advice ever. Why would you not tell clients to pay off their debts? Well, because if we pay off a collection, you can adversely affect their credit score and they're qualifying for a loan. So for those of you not trolling at home, let the experts answer the questions.
Yep, there you go. Yep. That wasn't as much fun as I thought it was going to be. I was looking for something really fun. Like I thought we were going into, and well, YOLO was blocked. There we go. So that was fun. So there you go. It ended up being fun. So
it did end up being fun.
If you're still here, you haven't already, hit the like button. We appreciate it. We, come back here each week to provide value to you guys. Again, very thankful for everyone who contributed tonight, who put comments in there, who ask questions. That's what makes the show great. There's a lot of good stuff here. I mean, if you know somebody that's buying a house, they should be watching this stuff. This is stuff that, you should know. I mean, these are things that, I mean, in some ways you should be taught by your agent and or lender in some form or fashion. But a lot of these questions are a bit out of the ordinary. So it's good to know what you're getting into. And there's not a lot of education out there. You know, you don't go to college to learn how to buy a house, right? It's something that's either self-taught or you do it without having any idea how the process works, or somebody teaches you, which oftentimes isn't the case. So, but either way, a long way of getting around to saying thank you for being here. Going to throw contact information up. Somebody's going to throw a $5 chat in there at the end and change this whole thing. Oscar, I appreciate your money, man. Thank you.
805's talk, Oscar.
All right. Seller says if we offer $755, they will be back $15K back to relocate tenant. Good deal. Seller says if we offer, they will.
I think there's a tenant in the property, and they're saying if they pay him $755, he'll give the tenants 15 grand to take a hike so they can move into the property.
I mean, it depends, right? Is it a property you really like? Is that something you want to do? I mean, I definitely wouldn't buy it with the tenant in the property. I wouldn't close with the tenant in the property in this environment. I would want them 100% out. Is that your responsibility to pay the seller to get their tenant out? Not really. It's the seller's responsibility. If they want to sell their house, they're going to get the tenant out. I mean, that's their job. So that, in my opinion, that money should come from the seller because that's their problem. But in this environment, when you can't find property and people are willing to do things, and if you think that property might be on the market, you know, if that same property are on the market in a month and it's going to be $15,000 higher, it might be in your best interest to pay it. So I would try to work it out, maybe pay less to get it done. And who knows, maybe the seller's moving out anyway, and they're just using that as an opportunity to get more money. I don't know, but it could be worth it. And Matt, thought you had a question, man. So like, we're going to be here all night, buddy. Matt threw a super sticker in here for $5. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Another great lender out there in the Sacramento area. So if you're looking for somebody also in California, but want to be local, you know, you could give Matt a call. He's got a good YouTube channel as well. And can, you know, puts out a lot of good content, and he said, keep up the good work. So thanks, Matt, for jumping in there. But we are leaving this, guys. Thank you for joining us. Contact information, Josh. I don't know if, let's just throw something up there. Here we go. Boom. Oh, I did the wrong one. All right. Well, that is not right. Here, we'll just throw Josh's information up. How's that? Want to reach out to Josh Lewis there, you can contact him, reach out directly. If you need me, you can comment in the description below or in the comments, and I will reach out to you, provide my contact information. Either way, appreciate you guys being here. Thanks for all the love tonight. We will see you next week. Have a great night. Adios.